Welcome to Live with the Guy, every day at noon central, where I talk daily pop culture and politics. I got my producer Nat over here switching cameras and reading articles for us. Okay, let's get right into it. We'll start with the pop culture, and I'll segment the pop culture separate from the politics from now on, and I'll make it clear when I'm doing one and the other. Okay, so let's go into Thunderbolts here, and Thunderbolts project to lose $100 million in epic Marvel flop. Why don't you read a little bit of it?
Yes, so Thunderbolts projected to lose $100 million in epic Marvel flop despite high audience score. Thunderbolts is projected to become a major flop for Marvel, losing upwards of $100 million. Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts was supposed to be a return to form, a morally gray, character-driven ensemble film featuring beloved anti-heroes like Florence Pugh, Yelena Bellanova, and Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier. With a high-octane cast and a more grounded espionage-style narrative, the film promised to reinvigorate a sagging Marvel Cinematic Universe. Instead, it's crashing harder than expected, and it may be about to cost Disney over $100 million.
Well, and a lot of people really did like this. One of our original viewers and those most loyal viewers, Rafa, went to go see it, and he said he really did like it. It did have a high audience score. The problem is people are burned out of superhero movies, so even though they managed to make a good movie, no one really went to go see it, in mass at least, and they didn't recommend it to other people. That being said, do you have anything to say about this?
Well, I think they're also just burned out of Marvel itself. Maybe superheroes could still, maybe, if they change them a lot. But yeah, the burnout's there. And also the fact that it's female-led. Like, I'm sorry, but any female-led superhero movie's just not going to do great.
Yeah, and she was the highlight of the movie, but having a strong female lead compared to what the ceiling would have been on a strong male lead is something completely different. A female lead, it's really hard to carry a movie. It can happen, but it's the rare exception. Now I remember what I was going to say. It's lost $100 million, but that's on the low end. I'm thinking this movie must have lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million. It has a $100 million loss openly, but I don't think they're adding in the marketing budget and things like that. The marketing budget on this thing was expected to be $400 million. I'm not going to say they lost the whole marketing budget. I want to be a little bit conservative. So between $200 and $300 million on the marketing budget plus the $100 million here. I'm guessing, in my opinion, it's between $300 and $400 million they lost. That's almost $500 million. Mm-hmm. That's crazy amount of money. Disney really needs to take the wake-up call on these superhero movies and do something. They need to try to save Star Wars as well. Maybe this R-rated franchise of Star Wars with Ryan Reynolds is at least something different. They can't just keep cookie cuttering the same movies over and over and expect a different result.
But I think the Star Wars one is just like a fever dream of Ryan Reynolds. I don't think they'd ever give it to him, especially now with the whole Blake Lively situation.
Yeah, but his last movie was a fever dream too, and it worked out.
After 10 and a half years that he begged every single studio he could because he hated how he had to portray Deadpool in the first ones.
Yeah. Oh, good switching today, by the way.
Oh, shut up.
Not on camera. Don't let the people know you're truly a feminist.
Not a feminist, just a wife.
Okay. Okay. Not a wife, just a headache.
That is what a wife is.
Okay.
Headache that loves you.
Okay, let's go into the next article before I start regretting what I'm saying. Okay, this next one, it was about were we going to go into the transgendered female baseball player?
That comes after this.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Oh, yeah, this was actually a pretty big rumor.
Yes, so from that Park Place.
And I found this one late, but I thought I could have a lot of input on this, and I think this is a good thing, but it also shows a lot of troubles with the movie.
So from that Park Place, that Park Place, go follow them if you don't know who they are. It says, rumor Superman movie cut by 30 minutes, editor fired, and tone overhauled after test screening fallout. We also saw this rumor with Fantastic Four. Funnily enough. So your response to a recent Superman test screening may have led to sweeping changes for the upcoming James Gunn movie. According to a report from World of Real, major last-minute changes have rocked James Gunn's Superman reboot, including the removal of nearly 25 to 30 minutes of footage, the replacement of an editor, and the addition of a second composer. So also the music, apparently.
Wow, these are huge changes. Cutting 30 minutes from a movie is big. Now, I used to go to test screenings all the time. When I used to live in California, I used to work at a theater. That theater used to give out test screening tickets. So when you go into a test screen, very often the visual effects aren't done. This green screen is actually, you still see the green screen on certain scenes. So they're very rough cuts. And then they give you a questionnaire. You get a free ticket to watch the test screening, but then you get a questionnaire after. And based on those questionnaires, I ended up watching the final results of some of the movies that I test screened, and they were massively different. But 30 minutes, even for a test screening, having difference, you kind of come with a somewhat finished product with the test screening. This seems to be like they had a lot of backlash. I'm guessing they're trying to test it with moderate audiences as well. Typically, test screenings happen in, I would say, very progressive areas like California because they're close to Hollywood, close to the studios. But with so much backlash from the traditional or conservative community, they may want to get test screenings with more moderate audiences. So that's why maybe the test screenings turned out so badly for them and they're making so many changes. The fact that the editor got fired, well, he probably already got his paycheck for the original cut of the movie, but it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens here. I know the original trailer looked horrible. The second trailer looked a lot better, but they just packed it full of action. They almost showed you the whole movie, so there was a lot of spoilers in there. And I don't have high hopes for this, especially when this Superman's kind of competing with what's the last gentleman's name from the last Superman?
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. I was going to say Jim Caviezel for some reason.
No.
Henry Cavill.
Cavill.
And Henry Cavill was beloved as Superman, especially more after he stopped playing Superman. He's become really beloved in a lot of video game communities, Warhammer board gaming communities, the conservative community. So he has a real big fan base now. When he first took up Superman, he didn't really have the same following. I would have almost just cast him again and paid him whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he was also kind of aging out. Maybe people were getting a bit tired of him.
He's still in better shape than this guy. Even at how old is he?
40 something.
40 something. Yeah, he's in amazing shape. So,
okay.
I mean, looking at him in The Witcher. The Witcher was recently. If I had to compare The Witcher to this new Superman, I mean, The Witcher.
Or Jim Caviezel. He dyed his hair black, and he could also be Superman.
He's too old. Jim Caviezel's extremely old.
So I'm thinking of him because also in the last.
Jim Caviezel is the gentleman that played Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's old as hell.
Okay. Well, that's the thing. Like all these new kid actors don't know how to go to the gym and eat meat properly.
Well,
they're soy boys.
We're gonna get into it
They're
later.
fed soy and hormones.
We're gonna get into it later with some of the other articles here, but Hollywood is having a real trouble building new young stars. They're just not able to do it. They can build it for a couple movies with this fake hype that they can put behind them, but they don't have a real star that stands on their own. Okay, let's go into the transgendered pitcher.
So apparently a transgender pitcher has been dominating Minnesota girls softball. Champlain Park softball team is on a run in Minnesota thanks to transgender pitcher Marissa Rothenberger. According to a Mail Online story, at 9, Rothenberger's mother applied in district court to alter her child's birth certificate after their 9th birthday. With the petition being approved, Rothenberger was issued a new birth certificate showing to be born female, switching their name from Charlie Dean to Marissa. Minnesota does not require birth certificates to be marked if they have gender change, with that not standing in Marissa's way of eligibility. Rothenberger would be eligible to continue playing under the NCAA banner with the current policy, even if there are protests from opponents or teammates.
Yeah, and this is a little bit crazy. Like, I was literally just watching a debate on Timcast. It was on the culture war. It was pretty good. And the liberal debater or the progressive debater was stating, well, she's a traditional progressive. She doesn't have these radical beliefs. Then they went into the transgendered issue, and she was full of radicalist beliefs. She believes you should be able to change your passport to whatever gender you want. And Tim's point was, well, you don't have a right to go into other countries under international law. There's a lot of things that have repercussions for relying on your passport with a gender and things like this. So especially when it comes to sports, you really want fair play in sports. And Like you have to come up with something else. You either need a transgendered sports league, or you need, which has always been my suggestion, just the open sports division has always been the men's division. Women just aren't able to compete in the men's division. That's why they made them a separate category of female sports. What do I mean by this more complexly is the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL all do accept women if they're good enough to play at that level. Of those three sports leagues, only the NHL has a woman made it to that top level, and it was a goalie, and she only played in preseason games. It made quite a rile at the time. I was actually a fan of that goalie, but she couldn't compete at that level when it came to regular season and things like that. She got kicked back down to the minor leagues. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't understand that the men's division is the open division. So
and also, like, the fight for women's sports initially, like, it was this whole big feminist thing to have women have their own leagues and compete in a, like, fair way. And now they're trying to reverse all of that. Not that I agree with the feminism aspect of it, but there's still a lot of women that are either quiet or don't want to say anything, even though all their titles, everything that they work for so long is being stripped by these men who insist on people, and women particularly, pretending that they are also women. But it's an ego power play. It's not...
Well, and it's...
Because if they really just wanted to compete, they'd either go compete against men as women, but go compete against men, or have their own league. But they don't want their own league.
Well, and women have really handicapped themselves by not speaking up earlier. They kind of are speaking up now, but most, especially in the collegiate league in college, women were okay with this, and they didn't want to say a thing, so they were just kind of silent.
And I mean, props to Riley Gaines, because she was one of the first ones that spoke up, and she actually was one of the ones that pushed through the legislation that Trump eventually signed. So
after she did speak up, and then there was one other girl that spoke up, now it's kind of broken the barrier, and it's okay to speak up against it. You also have to think a lot of these female athletes are going to be the future leaders of tomorrow. As far as women go, when you look at women as a whole, who's going to kind of rise to the top, be CEOs and things like this? It's women that are playing sports. They know how to kind of assert themselves in a social atmosphere, things like this.
Do we want women to be CEOs?
No, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, if they are going to be CEOs and they're scared to speak up even in their collegiate athletic career, what's going to happen when they do become CEOs? Are they going to be able to make the hard decisions and go against the grain?
But I think that actually brings in more the reality even further, because like women usually shouldn't have to be speaking up against these kinds of things. And because men are entering their own safe sports spaces, they're having to essentially also become men in a way.
Yeah, it's a very strange situation. We talk about this a lot, especially on our night show. Mm-hmm. That's at 9:15 Central Time every night. That's Nat and the Guy live. We'll be right back here. But let's continue on. I think Lilo and Stitch is next. And this is just kind of an update I wanted to give. And Hollywood loves when Disney has a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Because Disney pays them to love it.
And they just usher in praise. So I'm going to actually give some critiques to this. I actually really did like the movie, so I'm not shitting on the movie in any way, shape, or form. I highly recommended this. I watched Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch in the same week, and I was expected to like Mission Impossible. It's more of a traditional guy's action movie, and I really didn't like it too much, but Lilo and Stitch really tugged at my heartstrings, even though it had some progressive propaganda sprinkled in there. It was nothing you couldn't look over.
So Lilo and Stitch box office mayhem, all the records broken as picture zooms past 400 million globally, and yet another milestone, Disney's live-action redo is crossing the 200 million mark domestically faster than 2025's top earner, a Minecraft movie.
Yeah, and that was surprising because Minecraft really had a special kind of, can you switch a little bit? Had a really interesting marketing. They were able to market on an independent level on social media and things like this. Lilo and Stitch marketed in the traditional way, but their alternative marketing really just came from great reviews. Even before the movie came out, the leaks, the rumors, everything kind of snowballed into good leaks and rumors, where Disney typically has negative leaks and rumors. And that's the thing about Disney, and they should be able to realize this with Lilo and Stitch going forward. They if they want to appeal to the moderate audience, they need the types of leaks that are coming out a year before, very often in the cases of some movies, to really appeal to moderate audiences and have a good publicity for the movie.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on the leaks and rumors, because when they first, for example, cast Nanny, and even all the other actors as well, it was the left that got up in arms saying, oh, she's not dark-skinned enough. She doesn't look like a native Hawaiian, even though she is from Hawaii. And they tried to do this whole big controversy, but nobody was listening to them because they're like the actual activists that were trying to do a boycott are too small. But now it's funny that because they went more down the middle and they still try to bring in this progressive messaging, some more right-leaning conservatives are liking it, kind of like us, but others are with doing the whole, I'm not going to spoil it, but are very angry at the ending because it completely changes the meaning of the movie and the meaning of and purpose of Nani as well. But then the left is also very angry because of how they depict Hawaii, how they don't show the terrible things that have happened to Hawaii.
Yeah, but when it came out to the pre-rumors, it was the left backlash that they were getting, and that left backlash really kind of drew the moderate audience, because it was the right kind of backlash that really kind of said, well, maybe maybe Disney is changing its ways, because typically it was always backlash coming from the more moderates or traditional side of the coin.
Yeah.
So the maybe leftist backlash isn't the worst thing for movie promotion.
Yeah, because it brings in the other half.
Yeah, not just the other half. It brings in really your moderate crowd. Okay, let's go into what's next here.
Elden Ring.
Okay. Why don't you read a little bit about this? And I mainly brought up this article to talk about video game IPs being extremely hot right now, with now Elden Ring, but we also had Minecraft.
Kit Connor eyed to star in Alex Garland's Elden Ring movie. Alex Garland is considering a reunion with his Warfare star Kit Connor for his next project in the upcoming film adaptation of the hit video game Elden Ring, produced by A24 and Bandai Namco. Sources tell Variety that Garland is considering Connor for a starring role in the film, but a formal offer has not yet been made.
Okay, and this kid is not a star, and this is the article I was talking about Hollywood does not have a crop of young stars, and they don't know how to build them anymore. I mean, he's not going to appeal to men because he's not masculine enough, and he's just not hot enough to appeal to women. At least that kid from Dune, what's his name?
Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah.
Chalamet, whatever.
He's
not hot.
But that's what Hollywood's trying to portray, and if you put him next to him, one is somewhat dateable, I would say, for a female. Okay.
Timothée Chalamet looks like a lesbian, an anorexic lesbian.
I do agree with that. He's not your traditional masculine male, but if you're gonna put a feminine male up, him versus Sean.
I couldn't even say
How do you say his name? I can't even say his name either. But if you put one to the other, one kind of looks like a star and can fit a role. This guy, I'm not like, honestly, I'm not paying my hard-earned money to go see a movie with this guy in it as the star.
Out of all the leading men that they're trying to portray, that is this new non-toxic masculinity, sadly, I'd say that just because he's older and he looks slightly more like a man, I'd say Pedro Pascal is the manly one that they're trying to put up, and I hate him.
You did a whole expose on Pedro Pascal, and the scandals behind that guy was pretty crazy.
And we're doing one in English for this channel.
I do agree. If you take all of his politics out of everything and everything he says off camera, he can portray a good masculine role on camera once in a while, and he did so in The Mandalorian. I mean,
at least he looks like a man, and it might be because he's 50, but all of these, they all look like little lesbians, and they're little, and they're small, and they don't have any muscle mass, and they keep saying that's what Gen Z girls like. I honestly don't if they saw actual men, I think they'd like the actual men more.
Yeah.
But they don't see them on screen or around them, because all the other little teenage boys think that that's the standard they have to hit, looking like a soy boy feminist, soy boy lesbian.
Well, going back to the article here for a second, this has to do with Elden Ring. This is a huge video game property. So it's going to have a built-in fan base. And this is the thing about these video game properties. They do have huge built-in fan bases. We've now seen it with Mario, with Sonic, with Minecraft that recently just came out. They have The Legend of Zelda preparing to come out. That's going to have a huge following. People will go to the movies for that. And each one of these video games is a different kind of following. Yes, there's some crossover in the audience, but it's not like Marvel's or Marvel Comics or DC Comics where you're appealing to the same fan base over and over and over again. And you can only go back to that well so many times. And that was kind of the first story we were talking about. Even when they make a good movie now, people don't want to go see superhero movies. They're kind of burned out of it. I think you will have the one-off, which it will kind of be the exception to the rule with superhero movies, and it will be able to do well. But for the most part, the studios need to move away from Marvel movies, and I think they're starting to realize that and go into video game IPs and things like this.
But then what I think is they're going to end up ruining that as well, because nowadays they find a formula that works and they keep using that exact same narrative formula. Even the beats that they use are exactly the same, regardless if it's DC, Marvel, women, men, whatever. But before, like in the 90s, 80s, 70s, they found a formula that worked, like rom-coms, but each story was different and brought something different, brought a different ideology, storyline.
Maybe I'll disagree just a little bit, because these built-in fan bases, what I think Hollywood is really realizing when they're doing different things, if the fan base turns on you, this turns into pre-release bad media for the movie. So they need to really stay true to the IP and things like that. I know with Henry Cavill and Warhammer, when they were talking about that whole thing, it went sour, and it looks like that project got thrown in the trash bin, at least for now.
But what I'm saying is I think they could still do superhero movies if the actual stories and beats and the storylines behind the heroes were different, but they're not. They're all the same. You can just replace, like, put the different character name here, and now it's a new movie.
Yeah, and I agree for superhero movies like Marvel and DC, the beats are very replicable, and so is the imagery of the movie itself. But when you take something like Elder Rings versus a Mario, they're completely different, and they're going to have a completely different feel. So you're not going to really be able to cookie cutter it. Even if you are cookie cuttering it, it's going to have enough variance that I think people will have a longer shelf life for video game IPs. I also think whoever gets Grand Theft Auto, if they do that movie right, if they ever make it a movie, is going to be huge, because it already has this built-in Miami Vice style movie to it. And movies that have pulled off the Miami vibe correctly are usually pretty good. Something like Bad Boys, or actually the Miami Vice movie, things like that. So they have a well of historic films that they can go to kind of know what works and know what doesn't. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go into the next story here.
So Ralph Macchio insisted that Karate Kid Legends delay its release until after Cobra Kai. The film originally was slated to arrive before the conclusion of Cobra Kai. I was screaming constantly every day. 48 hours after wrapping Cobra Kai in Atlanta, Ralph Macchio was right back where he started, on the Montreal-based set of Karate Kid Legends. Macchio stepped foot, blah, blah, blah. It was the weirdest feeling. I literally was at somebody else's house, but I kind of helped build the house, Macchio tells The Hollywood Reporter. You want me to keep reading?
I wanted to know if Cobra Kai actually released on Netflix yet.
I don't know.
And that's what I was trying to get you to read.
Okay.
And what I was going to say about this, Karate Kid is getting a ton of bad publicity, and they had done everything right. So they did 90% of things right, except they made a horrible movie overall, and that's really bringing down audiences' scores right now. And I think this is going to really hurt the movie. When I said they did everything right, they had a big name actor with Jackie Chan. They played up to the traditional base of the Karate Kid with... What was this gentleman's name again that played the original Karate Kid?
Ralph Macchio.
They had Ralph Macchio in it, which did appeal to the newer audience from the new YouTube series Cobra Kai as well. Even the marketing and everything like that drove up into this should have been a hit. The problem is they just made a bad movie from what I'm hearing. Everybody that's reviewed it so far has not had good things to say about it. I was actually kind of excited to see this when it came on streaming. I wasn't necessarily going to go to the theater to watch this. I was a huge fan of the original Karate Kid. I thought they kind of killed the series with the female Karate Kid, and then Jaden Smith really killed the series. But with a comeback of the YouTube series Cobra Kai and then Netflix picking that up, they have really revitalized themselves. And even though they had the female Karate Kid and Jaden Smith, people didn't watch those so much. So people kind of got a break from the Karate Kid, even though there was movies being released. But when Cobra Kai came out, it really got pumped into pop culture. So I expected this could have been a turning point to reset the Karate Kid, but it's looking like they may have messed it up.
So the last 5 episodes released on February 13th of this year on Netflix.
Oh, it did. So yeah, I would have also agreed with him that wait till Cobra Kai comes out. If that has a snowball effect, those people will go to the cinema to watch it. The question is, I haven't actually seen any ratings pop up in the news about Cobra Kai, so I haven't reported on it. I know when Cobra Kai was on YouTube, it was a huge series. Since it's moved over to Netflix, it's lost some of that steam. Okay, let's go into
the cover story.
Yep, the cover story.
So, Blake,
you're going to do a full story on this tonight on your separate show?
Yeah, well, not full story, but I also, because getting into the Blake Lively lawsuit with Baldoni would take forever. Mm-hmm. And I haven't super followed it because I'm still exhausted from, what's her face, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp from years ago, because I followed that to the T. But I will get more into Taylor Swift and fake feminism and her fake environmentalism claims. And
well, yeah, and your show is on at 8 Central Time on our other 8 p.m. Central Time on our other channel. It's Nat and the Guy in Espanol. It's a Spanish channel, so if you speak Spanish, yes, go watch that. But she does more in-depth stories, usually one on some kind of celebrity and what's going on in the news, and then a political story. That being said, we've been testing different celebrities to see what people are interested in because it's really hit or miss. So you're going to do a shorter story on Taylor Swift and then do the longer version if it does hit. Yeah. You recently did Pascal and he was pretty popular, but I was amazed when you did the in-depth research on some of his, not only his past, but his family's past.
Yeah. And so, I do plan on releasing an English version on this channel, probably Saturday, so tomorrow. Yeah. Doing it basically the same thing, but in English, because I don't see anybody else talking about it.
No.
In English. So I'll do that.
Okay, let's go into this Taylor Swift story. Read a little bit of it for me, and then I'll get into a little bit of the Baldoni, Blake Lively saga.
Because you know more about it. So Taylor Swift's dad, Papa Swift, apparently came forward with claims about Blake Lively text threats. If you thought the drama surrounding It Ends With Us was over, think again, because it has now roped in yet another player in the form of Taylor Swift's father. According to a source who spoke to the Daily Mail, it was the pop star's dad, Scott Swift, who made the bombshell revelation that Blake Lively had threatened to leak her private texts with Taylor amid her ongoing legal woes with Justin Baldoni. If that info dump sounds a little confusing, do you want to clear it up? Earlier this month, Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, claimed in a letter to a judge that Lively had threatened to release her private messages with Swift if the singer didn't publicly support her during an ongoing feud with Baldoni.
And stop right there. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but since this is the cover story, I'll get you to read some more of the article after I talk about it.
Sure.
The fact that Blake Lively was calling Taylor Swift one of her dragons, that like when that came out, that was just so cringe. I mean, Taylor Swift must have been not so happy with that. But that being said, these people are not real friends. Real friends do not instantly stab each other in the back. They stick by each other.
Well, some do.
Well, they should if they're real friendships. These friendships are really based upon Hollywood relationships and business relationships.
And who looks good on a cover together.
Yeah, and it really looks like, man, I used to really like Ryan Reynolds, so if I talk bad about him, I still may go watch his movies, but man, it's a shame a lot of things that came out in this. It really looks like Blake Lively, a large portion of the management staff, the book writer, Taylor Swift, and the New York Times reporter kind of colluded to steal this series from Justin Baldoni. And that's coming from somebody that when this whole scandal came out, really did like Ryan Reynolds and did not like Justin Baldoni. I still don't like Justin Baldoni, but the fact is, just because I don't like somebody doesn't mean they're not in the right. And the rumor now is that Taylor Baldoni is going to take his lawsuit threats away from Taylor Swift, and she's not going to have to testify either. Mm-hmm. So that's
to be deposed.
Pretty interesting.
Yes. Do you want me to keep reading?
Yeah, let's read a little bit more.
So at the time, Friedman alleged in court documents that Lively's lawyer, Michael Gottlieb, demanded that Swift release a statement of support for Lively, intimating that if Swift refused to do so, private text messages of a personal nature in Lively's possession would be released. Doubling down on the allegation, Friedman then claimed he knew of Lively's supposed threat from a person very closely linked to Swift. While that source was a mystery at the time, it is now reported that Scott was the one who approached Friedman with intel around Lively's interactions with his daughter. Scott Swift did not want his daughter to be dragged into this any further, an insider claimed. Apparently, Scott gave the information to Baldoni's legal team on the proviso that they would remove Taylor from any future involvement in the legal feud between Lively and Baldoni. Scott voluntarily gave up this information as part of the deal that would include Baldoni's team withdrawing their subpoena for Taylor.
Yeah, and I think Baldoni's case is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And when this stuff first started to emerge, people were really on Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's side, mainly because of Ryan Reynolds. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that, like, Blake Lively is really a nobody type of star, and her career may burn down her husband's career in the process. This could go down spectacularly. Once this lawsuit comes out, and the lawsuit is for so much money, it's almost impossible for them to settle now. If they would have settled early on, they would have been able to do it. Baldoni has $1 billion backer back in his legal fees. I think they want to send a message here. I don't think they want to settle.
Yeah. And I mean, with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, allegedly, their whole thing started when he cheated on Scarlett Johansson. So, I mean, when you start off with cheating, the rest of the relationship will probably reflect that as well, sadly.
Yeah, and I will say this about Taylor Swift. Ever since Emmanuel Macron's wife, there had been rumors that she was potentially a man because of Candace Owens coming out. Now they
coming out with the allegations, coming out
with the allegations, and they went on to Michelle Obama, and there was pictures when she was younger. She did look very masculine, but the traditional conservative community is going a little bit overboard now.
Yes.
They're trying to pin this on Taylor Swift. I'm seeing this all over social media. Because of her height, they're putting her next to people that are short, and they're saying, do you think this could really be a woman, and things like that.
But her whole family is really tall.
Yeah, it doesn't help the traditional.
Norwegian women are super tall.
It doesn't not all men. Yeah, it doesn't help any community that's trying to say Taylor Swift is a man at all. But the amount of things that are on social media right now, she is starting to get a backlash, and this all kind of started during this Blake Lively case. Yeah. So, but now that she's kind of pulling away and seems to be siding with Justin Baldoni, I think a lot of this heat is going to draw down. Her and her publicity team are really good at controlling the media and reading the tea leaves, because there's been times that she has had a lot of backlash, and she's kind of been able to disappear or make the right moves and stay quiet for a little while and then reemerge. That's why she's had such a long-lasting career, and she's really been able to, one of those stars that's crossed over to progressives, to conservatives, to a lot of different demographics as well, men, women, things like that.
Well, but she did have that stupid thing against J.D. Vance where she posted a picture of her surrounded by cats. I'm going to talk about that later tonight, but I think that broke off a lot of her more conservative fans, because I mean, she was country based in the beginning. Her whole family is allegedly more supportive of more Republicans, be it Rhino or not. But that, I think, made a lot of people very angry.
Yeah, but that's not the first time she's made a bad move. But when she does make that misstep, she actually has enough self-awareness where she'll draw back. She's been really politically quiet lately. And I think it's because she knows how to, like I said, she knows how to read the tea leaves every single time. It's not like every star is going to make a misstep, but most of the time it's so ingrained in their nature that they just continue the bad behavior, especially Pedro Pascal and his downfall, which we're going to start currently seeing in real time. He was so immersed in politics and he got rewarded so many times for politics. And when you start looking into his past, it's really ingrained in who he is. So his ability to stop talking about politics is going to be very hard for him. And that's why I'm really expecting a huge cancellation coming up around the time the Fantastic Four emerges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's in Mexico City right now. We were going to try to go see him to interview him about it, but
because we did a couple videos about him and they were fairly successful. And you're like, oh, he's in town. I said, oh, let's go try to interview him. And it was at Comic-Con. So, I mean, we just decided not to go.
Yeah. But I mean, with Taylor Swift, yes, it might be that like her team is making the right moves, but I think a lot of it is her dad. Like her dad essentially was the manager that did all the correct moves and was the one telling her like, don't get into politics. She even put it in one of her documentaries where he was basically chastising her and saying you can't alienate half the audience, especially the ones that have supported you from the beginning. And it is funny that this is one more story of a woman being essentially propped up by a man that knows how to do business.
Well, this is the thing about when your parents are your managers or the people that are advising you. It either works out extremely good or extremely bad, like in Macaulay Culkin's case.
Brittany and
Brittany and a bunch of other people. But you do have those examples like Taylor Swift and I just had it in my head. There was somebody else that had their parents as a manager, and it worked out extremely well for them.
Kardashian?
No, not Kardashian.
I mean, not for the
I'm
rest
not
of
touching.
society.
I'm not touching that one. Okay,
I don't think anybody wants to touch that one, honestly.
Okay, let's continue to move on here.
So Russell Brand. Russell Brand pleads not guilty to grape and space salt.
Okay, and yeah, I'm glad to see that he did plead non-guilty. It's not necessarily about him even being guilty. I don't think they're going to have enough evidence here, but maybe with the way the laws have been changing in the UK, for instance, you can be prosecuted for not only hate speech in the UK, but what was the thing we were reporting on again? I keep forgetting the name.
Anxiety.
Oh, you can now be prosecuted in the UK if you cause somebody anxiety, which is absolutely almost insane. And this is why you had to take a stand at hate speech laws and said no, freedom of speech before hate speech, because now hate speech has gone into compelled speech, which it has now gone into anxiety laws. I'm interested to see what happens here, but win or lose, he's already kind of lost, because in the UK, their laws have been so weaponized against their stars and anybody that kind of speaks out of line that the prosecution and the headlines have really ruined his reputation to quite a degree. I like the guy, and I've really watched his transformation over the last few years into becoming Catholic and things like this. I really do wish the best for him.
But I mean, with Russell Brand, it's coming at a time where a lot of people, especially now with Harvey Weinstein also, new stuff coming out about his maybe potential getting out of jail. Not jail, but like some of the charges he's...
No, jail. He's in jail.
I know, but with the Candace Owens expose and stuff, I think the Me Too movement has lost a lot of steam, and Russell Brand does have now a lot of more right-leaning people in support of him because they've seen this story play out over and over again, where it's allegations from very long ago, everything is murky, people are starting to ask questions that were not asked initially, for example, with Johnny Depp, that should have been, but Johnny Depp, I think, is going to help people see, and also with, I mean, he's not my favorite person, but Andrew Tate and all the allegations against him as well, a lot of them coming out and being proven to maybe be fabricated. In this case, I mean, there's also a lot of questions that still remain about, yes, he was behaving that way in that time. He was also struggling with a lot of substance abuse issues, but so were the people around him. How much do these girls remember? Are they trying to get a payoff, etc.?
Well, it's going to be very important that people stand up against these allegations and prove their innocence in court, and they don't give payoffs. Johnny Depp was the first one to really step up, and because that was such a public trial, it really changed the culture and and there was a narrative shift back to the middle rather than believe all women even without evidence. It's becoming, we at least need some kind of evidence here.
And even with Johnny Depp, it was hard because he had to go through it via a defamation suit.
And
it wasn't an actual,
The
filed for the court.
the smear campaign that happened against him was pretty crazy before the trial even started. Also, Andrew Tate is an interesting case because they were able to smear him with his own words. A lot of his social media presence before he got big, he said some pretty despicable things. And the fact that then they layered on this smear campaign for years on him and they weren't able to find any real evidence, and all the evidence they did find ended up being fabricated and it fell apart in multiple court cases in spectacular ways, is just it's a little bit concerning. If you can't convict somebody like Andrew Tate and you have to fabricate information, like you just can't believe necessarily the prosecutions, the governments, and the accusers. You do need hard evidence.
Yes. And I mean, just to say, a lot of these cases have ruined a lot of other cases where it is true and something did happen, but people now doubt it because all of these horrible women have come out to either get a payoff or lie or to smear someone just for their own convenience when it's not true. And then when it is true, people now start doubting more and more.
Well, the Me Too movement really changed the behavior of successful or powerful men.
I think men in general.
Yeah, men in general, but especially people that are maybe a little bit more financially better off or in a position of power. The first celebrity that it really came into my eye with, and this was about a decade ago, was 50 Cent. He used to have everybody sign a waiver that would go into his house. He has a camera in every single room of his house. The waiver would state that they were knowledgeable that there were cameras in every room. So he would always be able to deny any allegations with video evidence, and he was very rarely left alone with people. So he would have eyewitness accounts as well. But after the Me Too movement, a lot of executives will not go to lunch alone with a female coworker, things like this.
Yes.
Okay, let's continue on here.
So Sarah Silverman, why did you put this story in here?
Well, I'll tell you why I put this in here. And it was because we did a live with Sarah Silverman. I put her on the cover and that thing blew up a little bit.
Who knows why?
And it was weird because a lot of my lives get 20 views, but Sarah Silverman and John Leguizamo, they blew up. And when I put them on the cover, there was just really no news for that day. And I was like, wow, maybe John Leguizamo's got a following. Maybe Sarah Silverman's got more of a following than I thought. But I said, next time she pops in the news, even with the little story, I'll put her in there.
Sarah Silverman plants a kiss on Joy Behar during surprise moment on The View. It's always fun to see you. That's like kissing, I don't know, like old beef.
Well, and Sarah Silverman is getting really desperate because when she first came up in her career, she was really funny and she was pressing the boundaries of what was acceptable and what was not. She went so far as to do blackface, which may have been a little bit too far. But as a result of that, I think she got really scared. She went into the very progressive movement and it really killed her comedy. She wouldn't press on that third rail anymore. And when it comes to comedy, you're really not funny when you're milquetoast.
And she got scared off, I think, because she was one of the first ones to be chastised for one time for having done black space at some point in her career.
Yeah.
I think she was one of the first ones that got that backlash. And then she said, oh, I have to move towards their side now because if not, they won't like me anymore.
Yeah. And it's just a shame because she used to be extremely funny. And, you know, it's one of those people when I do hear a lot of people don't like Sarah Silverman now because she's so ingrained in politics. But I think if she does take a step back and maybe say she was wrong a little bit on some issues and just focuses on her comedy and does try to press the boundaries again and stops caring what people are going to say or if she's going to get a cancellation, that I think she could really emerge as one of the leading female comedians. But she's really going to have to push back against this whole notion of cancellation.
Mm-hmm. But I think also people are getting tired, especially women, of this like gross with female comedy, like, oh, my period, oh, I'm bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like the gross comedy that they were trying to steal from men, I think is starting to not work as well anymore.
What I was actually, my original idea for when I read that story, I was going to say, she's getting really desperate. She's going on The View, a show which not a lot of people are watching, and she's trying to make controversy through kissing one of the hosts. It's like, just do good comedy. Focus on your comedy. That's what made you. You have a platform to do it. You're already famous. Go on YouTube. Yes, you might not get paid a lot for it, but you already got money. So you have the advantage of not needing money, and you can really press on those barriers.
I recommend one of my favorite female comedians. Her name is Leanne Morgan, and she is this like
How come I've never heard of her?
She's this very Southern lady. She came up after like her kids were big and stuff, like recently, a few years ago, and she does a lot of like Southern, like she lived in the Appalachian Mountains, and, like in a trailer, and she raised all these kids, and most of her comedy is about like her kids and being a mom, a married mom, not a single mom. And how her husband always works, and now she's like in her, I believe, 50s or 60s, and that's when her rise to comedy started. Her newer stuff, I think she's trying to lean a little bit more towards the feminism thing, but her older stuff is very good.
She sounds like a Roseanne Barr, and that Roseanne Barr is that kind of comedian from my time, an older mother that came up in the second half of life.
Yeah. So like go watch Leanne Morgan, the early stuff she has. If you're a woman, if you're a man, I don't think if you'd connect as well, but that's fine. Like women don't have to be catering to men's comedy, and women don't have to cater to women's comedy.
This feminist woke comedy that women are pigeonholing themselves into, they're not doing any favors to themselves, to comedy, or to anybody else. What I was going to say is the conservative or traditional non-progressive comedy space is really emerging because comedians are taking risk and betting on themselves by going on YouTube, realizing they don't need $1 million comedy special. They can just post the videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And this is really building them an alternative fan base and a distribution network where they can go right around Netflix. And then once they have that distribution network and they have that kind of power base where they can distribute on their own, Netflix is coming a calling, and now they have leveraging power to negotiate a better contract for themselves. And then they can do comedy that they want to do regardless of cancellation. Nobody can really cancel them because they're distributing their own content. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue to go here.
I have a lot of articles for some reason.
Yeah, we're just going to do pop culture today, I'm thinking.
Okay.
So, and then we'll leave the politics for tonight.
We have 3 articles about SEX and the city. But
well, it started with one, and then they kept popping up.
Have you ever watched it?
No.
Okay, me either. I've never. I mean, I watched the movies.
I do have it from a social, political commentary, and that's kind of why I brought these in. And then Rosie O'Donnell was in the other stories, which she's always involved in politics as well. So, okay, why don't you read the headline here?
So how, and just like that, season 3 pivots Carrie and Aiden. Do you actually want me to read this?
And I didn't know what just like that was, but for some reason I started reading an article and I realized it was kind of like spin-off of Sex and the City.
Yeah, well, it's a continuation of Sex.
And these girls are just old. Nobody cares about you anymore. And this is just...
Even when they did the movies, nobody really cared.
But when I did go on YouTube to try to do a little bit of research on a story that...
Did you watch it?
No, I didn't watch it, but people are actually excited about this series. The original fan base from Sex and the City, they're transitioning them over to this very well, but I kind of laughed when I seen the main actress there. She's looking old, and I was thinking, now she's irrelevant now, but... Sarah Jessica Parker, but the original fan base is remaining loyal to her. But I think what's happening is a lot of them are aging out. Old, yeah. They're aging out as well, so they're
the same age as they are.
They can see themselves in her. And they got nothing else, so.
But I mean, I didn't watch it, but I do know about it. I've consumed content about the series and just like that. I watched the Sex and the City movies because I had a friend that was really into them, but I never watched the original series. But this one, I mean, it's very, like, the infusion of progressiveness and wokeness in it is just mind-bending. It's horrible.
Okay, go into, because there's a few stories about this. So let's go into the next one, and I'll continue my diatribe about it.
Okay, so Rosie O'Donnell on romancing Miranda, because now Miranda's a lesbian because the actress...
Okay, hold on. I didn't know who Miranda was. I thought Miranda was Rosie O'Donnell's real-life girlfriend.
No.
Because I knew who Rosie O'Donnell was, and I didn't realize it was connected because And Just Like Us, I forgot that was the name of the series.
Just like that.
just like that. It popped up later when I was finding articles for today. So I thought, oh, Rosie O'Donnell's girlfriend's name's Miranda. But then I remembered the first article.
Yes.
So continue.
So Miranda is the redhead, if you didn't know. She used to be married to like this geeky lawyer guy. She was always sad and angry, and apparently and just like that, I believe in one of the movies too, like she came out and now she's a lesbian and she's empowered and she's trying all these different things with different women. And Rosie O'Donnell on romancing Miranda and just like that, and moving to Ireland to escape Trump. When would it be safe to come back?
Okay, so we'll talk about Rosie O'Donnell's opinions of Trump here a little bit, because the next article actually involves Miranda and Rosie O'Donnell again, and which is another crazy twist. When I read the third article, I threw it in there because the third article was actually the most interesting between the three. But I kind of wanted to talk about Rosie O'Donnell's idea of moving to Ireland. And I don't know if Ireland was the best country if you're trying to run from Trump. There is a huge backlash, and I cover Ireland a lot when I talk politics because it really does interest me. It's really tip of the spear when it's pushing against progressivism and immigration and things like that right now. It's really coming to a boiling point in Ireland. So I'm sure she's run over there, and now she's like, oh no, it's happening here too.
She went there to connect with her ancestors or whatever, because O'Donnell is Irish.
I was surprised that she didn't move to Canada. And I've seen a lot of these stars move to the UK and Ireland, where there's a huge pushback.
Yeah, a lot of them are not going to Canada for some reason.
Canada just elected an extremely liberal government, and they're going to be a liberal for the next 4 years at least.
Yeah.
So Canada, and it's very much like the United States, but rather than go there, they're going to Europe, where there is this progressive movement's really becoming to a boiling point in a lot of these European countries. Well. So I don't think they're going to find their liberal sanctuary that they think they're going to find by moving over there. I would have recommended Canada. Yeah. We actually fled Canada for Mexico because of that. So I would recommend any liberal that's looking for a safe haven or a liberal sanctuary to actually move to Canada.
Yeah. If you want your stupid policies and stupidity to continue, go to Canada.
Okay.
You'll see how it works out.
Let's go into the last story here, or not the last story, but the last story about this.
Oh, you didn't want me to? Okay.
Actually read a little bit of this. Sorry.
Okay. And just like that, Rosie O'Donnell has made a splashy return to comedy on the season premiere of And Just Like That. So this talks about what we're talking after, but I want to read about her moving to Ireland. Oh God, she talks a lot.
Well, that's her job.
Will I ever be able to find it?
She never got famous based upon her looks, I don't think.
Where is it?
Well, this is quite a long article.
Okay. How does living in Ireland suit you? Has it been a positive change? She was asked. Never for one moment since I arrived here did I regret my choice. People have been so welcoming, so accepting, and they have a different view of celebrity culture here. They are not prioritized over other people. People are much more friendly and intimate with each other in a real way. Every time I go into the pharmacy, I fall in love because the pharmacist talks to you. Have you ever spoken to a pharmacist at CVS? And that was it. So that was the only thing she said about Ireland.
Okay, let's go into the last story. And this last story, that even the headline shocked me.
And just like that, fans stunned. Okay, spoiler alert, I guess.
Oh,
spoiler warning for anybody that's watching this thing. And just like that, fans stunned by Miranda's lesbian sex scene with virgin nun played by Rosie O'Donnell.
And this is just set the series for me. This is going off the deep end. A virgin nun played by Rosie O'Donnell.
They did a bunch of other stuff in the first few ones. I actually do think I watched some of them to criticize them, and then I just never did a critique of them. Well, because I remember the storylines quite well for And Just Like That first season.
They're gonna they're gonna keep having to kind of one up themselves. What's next? Bestiality? Like, I don't know. And I the article caught my attention because the lovely picture of naked Rosie O'Donnell there was just like, oh my God. Okay.
But I mean, even in the first season, which for some reason I remember, I honestly do think I watched it.
You watched this thing?
I think so, because I remember like Miranda starts dating this girl called Che that's non-binary, and then Miranda doesn't know how to deal with like her own sexuality, and then Che's sexuality was played by I remember.
Okay, I don't need to know. I don't need to know about it.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is like they've gone so far off the deep end with trying to be super hyper progressive. Like this is like any older woman who wants to reinvent herself and become like super hyper woke. Like this is their wet dream, essentially, just like plastered all over older women's screens.
Yeah.
So don't watch it, but it is funny that it airs and it's on season 3.
Yeah,
That's insane.
and it's popular. Like I was surprised at the
Season 4.
popularity when I was looking at some of these things. So the reason it's so popular is not because I think of the progressivism. It's because of that built-in loyal audience. I think if Friends came back, it would be something similar.
Oh God, no!
You
actually
used
did.
to make me watch Friends every single night before
No,
bed.
I used to sleep. I used to go to sleep watching Friends.
And you used to own the DVD series and have to play it to fall asleep.
I can still quote it if you give me any.
I
line,
don't need you to quote it. And we have the last story of the day, at least for pop culture, and I'll leave the politics for tonight's episode.
So what do you want that to be?
Oh no, that was the last one.
That's why.
We'll end on a high note with Rosie O'Donnell, the Virgin Nun. Thanks for tuning in. Every day at noon Central Time, you're live with the guy. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so now. And we'll be back right here at 9:15 tonight with Nat and the Guy. Mm-hmm. And if you do speak Spanish, we have a secondary channel called Nat and the Guy in Espanol at 8 p.m. Central Time. Nat does a show. How would you describe your show?
Trying to use pop culture and celebrity to bring in political and ideological elements and explain it through that lens.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.